All right, everyone. Ken Paxton can't stop winning. Biden's $1.7 trillion handout, you remember back in 2022 when that passed? You remember how they said, okay, well, due to the honk current medical crisis going on, I'll just say that for the point of a video that goes on YouTube, it's okay if people in Congress vote remotely, so we don't need to establish in-person quorum. And there was a constitutional challenge that was made saying, no, it's quite clear over the precedent of congressional history that it was meant to be in person. The quorum needed to be established in person. You couldn't simply put a laptop in the person's seat and they're on a Zoom call or something like that because they're not present. And to be present in the original sense meant to be physically present. Now, weighing in on this from the perspective of somebody from the technological era, from the digital era, I don't personally see a problem with people calling in for that sort of thing, unless it's something major. I would say $1.7 trillion is fairly major. For debate and discussion purposes, I don't really care if somebody who doesn't physically need to be there in order to do what they're doing, give a speech, show statistics, etc. It can all be done digitally, and all be done remotely. That's fine. Perfectly fine. In fact, if we let members of Congress work remotely, we can dismantle all the congressional apartments we subsidize for these motherfuckers and pay them less money. We won't need to. There's no commute involved. At least only sporadically. You can give them a card and let them bill that, but they have to fly commercial. And put them in coach, way in the back, way behind the wings, with the little people. That would be funny. Limit their expenditures considerably. I don't give a shit if they work remotely, but if you're just unilaterally changing the rules, pig in a poke style, and you haven't established any legal framework by which you're doing that, and you're ignoring the basic premise of what quorum actually is, it's meant to be in person. When the founders incepted Congress long ago, there was no calling in. There wasn't even a telegraph at the time. That comes later. Then you get the telephone and radio and all of these other wonderful things that we both derive joy from and suffer under today. The internet is no exception. It's more enjoyable before the recent waves of censorship and government monopolism, but anyway, I digress. Paxton won the case in federal court down in Texas with the circuit judge there. So now it might go before SCOTUS. SCOTUS could invalidate it. Now, what is the pragmatic fallout from this? But fuck nothing other than in the future, it's going to put a handicap on Congress' ability to work remotely. It won't affect any of the money that's already been doled out because the spending bill is 2 years old. The money has still been dispensed, by and large. The spending is already there. And SCOTUS, because it does not control the purse strings, the House does, is not going to be able to invalidate the money that's already been allocated. But it can prevent it from happening again, giving one less reason for members of Congress to think about working from home. Again, it's perfectly fine. The job that they do is real easy. I could do it myself. Being a member of Congress, other than dealing with the bureaucratic paperwork and constant meetings, would be easy. You have to be a little bit more of an in-person, people person in order to run for office, which is why I've never seriously considered it. Fuck, I wouldn't even want to run for mayor of Rutland. Although I bet I could probably win, considering the current leadership. No offense, but Rutland's got some issues now, doesn't it? It doesn't seem that anyone's been successfully able to address them. So, no, that's perfectly fine. But the court ruled against you. They're effectively ruling that the bill itself was unconstitutional because quorum was never established. There weren't enough people in Congress there. You're supposed to have the majority of Congress present in order to establish quorum. The idea is that you represent the people. We need to make sure that the people that are representing them, by and large, are doing their job. Sometimes people punish their members of Congress for not showing up enough, actually. And it'd be some important vote, and you're like, I'm sorry. I'm in Zimbabwe right now. I'm doing some tourism holiday stuff. I'm sorry. I've decided to go Teddy Roosevelt mode and spend the next 2 months in the Amazon traversing this river or something like that. People have been punished politically for that before. Ken Paxton was almost removed from his DA position, by the way, but he prevailed. And they're like, oh, he's corrupt. Well, they didn't remove him. They decided not to go woke and go broke. Probably because it's Texas. Fuck, Trump's going to Eagle Pass tomorrow. He's going to get a warm reception. Biden's going to Brownsville. He's going to face heckling, probably. Briefly, because he's not meeting with people. He's just going in for a photo op meet and greet with the 10 ICE agents they could find that don't fucking hate his guts. So that he can make a pre-recorded message about how Donald Trump is disrespecting these brave border agents who keep our border safe from the border, and something like that. And Ken Paxton is right, by the way. As per the current guidelines, quorum is in person. He is correct. The court ruled correctly. I would point out that it's perfectly fine by me if they change that rule, but they didn't actually effectively change it. It was basically Nancy Pelosi making a slipshod decision and telling people, well, we'll talk about this later because right now people are sick and dying. Well, just because pragmatism cannot overrule the Constitution. That's a terrible premise. When you have that, it's called pig in a pokery. Well, we can violate the Second Amendment because there's too many shootings. Well, the logic doesn't follow. We're allowed to censor people's law-abiding speech because there is disinfo. Stuff like that. It's basically like, oh, the cops decided that it was pragmatic to root through your house without a warrant simply on a suspicion because they just feel it's necessary. They think you're up to something. And we want to make sure you're not up to something, building bombs or selling crack or something like that with Sleazy P. Martini or maybe a Hunter Biden. Well, that's not the way it works. Well, we decided to strip this state of its rights entirely. The 10th Amendment is good. We support it. But this is an expedient case because this state is really acting up. You know, this person is too dangerous to have a public trial. This person gets a private tribunal. Why? Because they're just too dangerous. We can't afford them those rights. Well, this person can be enslaved because they're not like the law-abiding black citizens. So it's okay. A little slavery is all right. A little indentured servitude maybe. Well, this particular group of women shouldn't be able to vote because they have the wrong views. You see where I'm going with this? A little prohibition is fine. Yeah, it's okay. It doesn't make any sense. And so to unilaterally change the rules to pass a massive spending bill that didn't really need to be passed, and not even have people there in person to actually do their job, as of right now, has been ruled unconstitutional. The fallout, though, is for future events. It's not going to do anything about the mass spending that occurred under this bill, because the money has already been allocated and spent. So don't expect there to be, I mean, they're not going to have to pay back $1.7 trillion and deflate the currency or something like that in order to restore people's currency value or anything like that. There'll be a bridge too far for them. They'll say, okay, we've gotten told by SCOTUS that we violated the Constitution. Well, we're really sorry about that. It won't happen again. Biden admin's done this a number of times, by the way. That's about all. Peace out.